Quebec is expanding its secularism law with a new bill that places more limits on public prayer and religious symbols. Under Bill 9, Premier Legault's government is proposing sweeping changes that include requirements of daycare workers to have uncovered faces, prohibits public institutions like hospitals from only offering halal or kosher foods, restrictions on public prayer, and the repealing of the Freedom of Worship Act. Some legal experts are saying this just goes too far. So we're joined this morning by Errol Mendez. He's a professor of constitutional law at the University of Ottawa and the editor-in-chief at the National Journal of Constitutional Law. Good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie.
We've been following the story. The province has already passed similar bills that ban religious symbols for some employees and requirements for newcomers to embrace Quebec's common culture. What is the reason being given for this extension of laws?
Well, they claim this is an attempt to have a deeper secularism in Quebec. Now, what they mean by that is that they want to have a neutral position between the state and any form of religion. Well, a lot of the attacks that they've had now on fundamental freedoms have nothing to do with the separation of the state and religion, because as you said in the opening statement, what does that have to do with allowing individuals within universities, for example, to have a very narrow space to have their religious prayers? It really shows that there is a fundamental attack on some of the most critical rights which are enshrined in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
And a reminder, that's not just schools where the prayer rooms would be removed. It would be places like chapels and hospitals as well. And, you know, those common spaces where people go when they need to reflect or grieve or get a moment to collect themselves. What will the restrictions on religious banned meals, this was a new one, mean for places like hospitals that right now serve kosher meals?
Again, that's an attempt to, again, extend what they call is the neutral position between the state and religion. Well, what has that got to do with the use of meals in hospitals? Or, for example, the ability of some individuals to want to have prayers in a certain public space which doesn't interfere with anybody else. So it really goes to show that there is an overarching desire on the part of some parties in Quebec, the present government, and potentially the Separatist Party, which may come to power in a year's time, to actually say the rights of the majority Francophone population in Quebec precedes everything else. And the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which these rights are guaranteed by, does not actually apply. In fact, there is a second bill coming through, Bill 1, which deals with a new constitution for Quebec, where under that bill, apparently some organizations will not be allowed even to go to court to contest these rights. They will be denied government funding for that. So this really shows there's an attack overall on the collective rights of minorities and others within Quebec, and undermines the entire Canadian value system and democratic system, which is enshrined in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Yes, and a reminder that these are laws that are being put in place against Quebecers. These are people who are, in some cases, born and live and raised in Quebec. This bill invokes the notwithstanding clause, and that's what's shielding the government, the federal government, from being challenged by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Bill 21 is going before the Supreme Court of Canada in the spring, in March. If that court rules against the province, could that affect this bill?
Well, it probably will not, because in all likelihood, what the Supreme Court of Canada will say on that is that, yes, the notwithstanding clause can operate, but they may also say, but the judiciary should still go ahead and actually give reasons why this is a very bad way of undermining the fundamental rights of the Charter. So my suggestion is that there should be a national movement, especially by the federal government, to contest these actions, because it undermines the very foundations of what this country is based on, which is a democratic value, the rule of law, the fundamental rights that should be respected by all citizens. And the federal government has a role to play in contesting these actions. And I'm surprised there hasn't been any opposition from them.
Errol, you bring up a really good point, and a question I have as well, which is if this were happening in another province, would we see this acceptance of what is happening in the province so far? Errol Mendez, it's great to have you on, as always. Thanks so much for your time today.
You're very welcome.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.